Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out here with me. My name is Alex Castillejos, and this is Just Be Blessed Season 5. And let me tell you, we are going to sharing more testimonies. We're going to be sharing more testimonies. And let me tell you, tonight, I have a testimony to share. And it's going to be a heavy one. And I want you guys pray for the lady is going to be here. Sister Maggie Serrato is here sharing her testimony. And let me tell you, I don't know if you guys heard or watched the series in Netflix called Program. It's about this school. The young people go there supposedly to have a better life. And maybe they have problems with drugs or something like that, or just to have a wonderful, nice live in the inside and the dorm. But let me tell you, we're gonna be talking about how that program, that show is called Program in Netflix, is about how exposing that kind of institute. And let me tell you, this terrifying, very bad footage, how they were treating the kids. And let me tell you, Sister Maggie is a survivor of that kind of stuff. And I gotta be sharing with you guys some pictures. I cannot be sharing videos because copyright and all stuff, but it's a program. We're gonna be talking about that kind of stuff, how she went through that kind of this experience. But we're gonna find out how God protect her and deliver her for that kind of situation, and what she's doing with her family for the Lord. So seriously, please share this link because it's gonna be a hot one, and let's invite her here and Just Be Blessed. Okay, how you doing, Sister Maggie? Thanks so much for being here and Just Be Blessed.
Hi, Alex. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, for sure, and thank you so much for reaching out, because when you sent me the message. And I had the privilege to know you in person and with your husband. And when you sent a message and I would like to share my testimony. I was like, yeah, wonderful, And then you shared with me a little bit, and you said, have you watched this a show is coming up in Netflix, and I'm gonna send you the trailer.
Yeah, the program.
Yeah. And I watched it, and I was like, what? You were in that school? And you say, yes, I want to share my testimony. I was like, wow, of course. But before we're going to be talking about that, I just want to know, please share with us your background. I mean, how was home? How was mom and dad, brothers and sisters? Tell us.
Well, to be honest, the beginning of my childhood was very broken and dysfunctional. I know that it's very controversial with my family because some of them may disagree, but I can tell from my point of view, it was definitely dysfunctional, and from other people's point of views, it was definitely dysfunctional. Ultimately, because of, to be honest, I believe that my mom just didn't have time to take care of us. She had 7 kids, and she was a full-time nurse. So ultimately, we were raised by my stepdad. When it comes down to it, my stepdad, I think that he just didn't have the mothering skills to take care of us. So there was a lot of free-for-all. I was the oldest girl, so I did most of the helping and with the cleaning, the taking care of the kids, changing diapers, stuff like that. Because of the dynamics, it was enough for a predator to be able to come into our household. And that is really where my testimony begins, is that I started being abused by my stepdad's cousin, who was good friends with him. Ultimately, that ended up leading me to become sexually active at a very young age. So by age 14, I was pregnant, and my son actually died at birth. And I was 15 at that time. So I had already experienced trauma at such a young age. And ultimately, what I needed was I needed my family to be able to be there for me and to give me the healing and to communicate, like what's going on, how did this happen? How did we get here? That kind of communication. But the internet and commercials, whatever it was, maybe they had a recruiting system with this school. So with the school, parents were actually given bonuses if they were able to recruit other teenagers. So I'm not sure how my mom ended up learning of this place. I just know that she learned of it, and ultimately I went to it. And I remember looking at it before I went. She had showed it to me, and she was like, listen, if things don't change, this is where you're going. And I remember looking at it, and it was just like, it looked like, to me, I was like, oh, well, maybe I feel better there, because the way that the pictures looked, it looked like everyone was fun, and, like at least I'd be with my friends. I wouldn't have to be in my dysfunctional home. So, like, honestly, it didn't seem like something scary to me as a kid, because I was dealing with things like having, like at the time I was about 15, so my brother was 12, and, we lived in a household where 12-year-olds, called you derogatory names when they were mad at you, or said, swear words. So I didn't want to live that kind of life anyways. But ultimately, when I went, it definitely wasn't the healing or the picture that they had on the internet. It was actually one of the most traumatizing things that's ever happened to me. Sorry, I don't want to leave no room for questions.
Yeah. No. Well, I have a question because you mentioned that, just to starting, having, sex way early in the age. It's not the time for that time. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is for later on in marriage, and like you thinking, you know what I'm saying? You're a little kid. You know what I'm saying? Like a little girl.
I look at my kids. Sorry.
Yeah, no. It's just crazy. And the thing is that you're a young girl and had the baby, and then the baby died, and that's just. I'm sorry to say this, but this is just a trauma. This is just a heavy issue. It's not just like, okay, we'll see you later, see you tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no.
Your parents there were not there to helping out. Like, okay, we're gonna take you somewhere to help you out, but maybe they didn't know about this. The real thing about that place, or.
No, they didn't. Ultimately, the way that those schools are set up, I have paperwork. You see, I have all my files right here. They're kind of scattered right now because we've been going through them. So I've got, trying to get to the camera.
Sorry. Yeah.
My files. I've got tons of files. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, my parents were manipulated. But it was like they were caught up in this type of environment where it was like they're constantly explaining that I am a liar, I'm a manipulator. So anything that I say, they can't believe. So my parents are, like anything that I have to say anyways, they wouldn't believe it. Like, like if I said that, I feel like I want to kill myself, which I had said things like that. I have paperwork where it wrote down manipulative, but, they didn't know what I was going through. It's like things like right here in my book, it says I got a BRV. So a BRV is a blatant rule violation. So this is a category 3. So there's different categories all the way to 5 categories. A category 3 is the highest one you can get without losing a level. You want, like, it's kind of like a video game almost. You have to get points to get out, except for there's way more chances to get in trouble than to get points. So it's like a system that doesn't work. But in this one, I got a BRV because I asked a question during reading time. I think that it was I had to go to the bathroom, so I raised my hand, and so I got a BRV for asking a question. Which then later on, during gym, somebody made a home run. and I clapped my hands. And because I clapped my hands, I got a loud and boisterous. I don't remember if I think a loud and boisterous is a category 2. So ultimately, a VRV takes 50 points. Category 2 will take 25 points. So that's 75 points. And I think we can only get 200 points a day. So you can see how that can quickly go down when I only did 2 things. That, if you think about it, I clapped my hands because someone got a home run. So when people experienced joy, I'm not allowed to express it. And this has psychologically messed with me growing up, because now I have this limbic system. My limbic system is going off when something goes on. I get fear, and that's not normal, you know? There's just, there's things that I deal with that people would never understand. They wouldn't understand why I would feel anxious, like things like having a door closed. Like, we weren't allowed to have our doors closed, so I get anxious behind closed doors. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's like people who go through normal life, you know, they don't have to have these kind of fears instilled in them. And ultimately, you know, when I reach out to a lot of the people who've gone there, they all have the same thing. They all get anxious for no reason in certain areas because they were affected by this program. I think that the only hope that I really had was that's when I started reading the Bible. And a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people are actually mad at God. People who went there, who were raised Christian, they say, why would God put me in a place like this? And that's a question that a lot of people are asking me.
Yeah, interesting, because I watched, I believe it was 3 episodes. I watched 2, I think. And the person who's doing the documentary, I mean...
Yeah, Catherine?
In the beginning, I mean, she was like, you know, I mean, not talking about them. I mean, maybe in the end, I didn't watch the last 2, but I think there are 3. I watched just 1. It was talking about like if God is, why is allowing this stuff, and you know, without the angry, hated inside, you know, and I mean, of course, I mean, if you don't read the Bible, you don't have that hope. I mean, you're gonna be thinking really bad.
Yeah, definitely. And I've honestly, I feel bad because I've had a few people reach out to me, and they usually ask, you know, like, I know, like some of them, that I know that God is real, but why would he let all these things happen? And it's so hard because it's like, you know, Joseph knew that God was real. He knew that God was real. Why did he have to be sold by his brothers, his own family, abandoned by them? You know, we have that problem too. And, you know, I mean, like for us who were sent there, we were essentially abandoned by our family. We were sold. I mean, they were paying for us to be here. And this wasn't a nice place. This was a place where, you know, for fun, we got to do labor. This was a place where if they were holding someone down, if you looked, you got in trouble. So you were to make no emotion, no sound, and look straight. At a place where I have experienced somebody try to commit suicide, and we weren't allowed to say anything and to look forward, and we weren't allowed to process those emotions. You know,
they were walking and they're like, hey, no, hey, how you doing? Hey, I see you tomorrow or something. I mean, you just walk like this?
Oh, we had to look straight ahead of us. We were not allowed to look from side to side, or it was considered an off task. We were being off task. So, like, to me, it's like I've already gone through my own concentration camp experience, you know?
Wow. Yeah. I'm going to be sharing some pictures because I couldn't, you know, share the video and the trailer or something so people can, I mean, just to tell you, I mean, I'm not really into about telling people what go to Netflix and stuff like that, but I mean, when there's something to, if you guys want to watch it, I mean, it's a real story. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, when it's a real story and documentary and stuff like that, I mean, I'm really into. I mean, I can promote it, and these real life stories, and you are one of them, and you're a survivor. Yeah. So I'm gonna be sharing pictures, and I know it's gonna be a little. You know, go back and thinking about it and stuff like that. And I'm going to be asking So what do you think about, just to see, it says this is Insight and the Institute,
Yeah.
and it's robbers of childhood. What do you think about that?
Yeah, many of us, we call ourselves survivors. We call us survivors. And many of the survivors have gone back, and some of them, they just have pent-up rage because ultimately, you know, there were things that we were supposed to enjoy with our family as, you know, being a part of it. And that was taken from us. And these people had no intentions on helping us get out of here. It took over 2 years. Some people were in there for 4 years, you know. I met people who went there at age 12 and they didn't get out until they were 18. Their whole preteen and teenage year gone, you know. Some of them have arrested developments where they have never grown up past certain ages. It was like once they went there, it was like they died, like they stopped growing up, and then they had to learn how to mature and be a normal person in society, you know. You hear about, like, for instance, like when you get people like the Jewish people, when they went through concentration camps, they never fully recovered, you know. People who were Christians who were persecuted, they never fully recover from what they had to go through. So it's a type of persecution where, you know, these teenagers have not been taught they haven't been taught normal life skills. You see, the way that the world was set up for most of us as millennials was that most families were focused on entertainment, as well as they put us in, you know, a normal school system. We listened to secular music, we watched secular movies, and ultimately being taught how to be a teenager was given to us by the media. And I know that a lot of people don't like to hear that kind of stuff, but ultimately, when you are young, like a child or a teenager, your brain is at a vital part of adolescence where it's learning. So if you're filling it full of things like, for instance, like me, when I was young, I was watching things like Not Another Teen Movie, and I was watching things where, like, what was it called? Like, there was one called, like, it was like a snowboarding one, but ultimately they always had the same story. Everyone's going out and drinking, everyone's going out and smoking, and they're partying and they're fornicating, you know. So a lot of teenagers were set up for failure because they saw these things and they beheld it, and then they practiced it because they saw this is what life is. And so, like, one of the things I disagree with is when Catherine in the movie says doing normal teenage stuff. You see, if you're being brought in the way of the Lord, those are not normal teenage stuff. No, you know, I have a teenager, and, you know, he loves to learn. We garden, we learn how to cook together. Like, I'm teaching him practical skills, even to the point where he knows medical missionary work, where he can use natural remedies to help people. And he's already practicing it, you know. And I think that they think that with children, that if you raise them a certain, it's like almost like we've been deceived that children are supposed to be entertained all the time, and the only education is school. But then when they're adults, they're supposed to all of a sudden just know how to do everything. And that's not true. If you're being raised on just video games, you're going to know how to play video games, you know? You got to raise them up in the way that they'll go. And I wasn't raised up in the way that I should go. And ultimately, I think that one of the questions that people ask, they say, why does God let this happen? I think it's because in the end, parents just don't want to take care of their kids.
And it's a lot of kids. I mean, look at it. Yeah. I mean, that was a lot. And
it was the easy way, Alex. It was the easy way.
Yeah, I'm sure you. I mean, I'm sure you didn't see people. I mean, they just found those footage, and
yeah, this footage right here is on the boys' end. Actually, the girls' end did not have any cameras, so we did not. Anything that happened to us was, you know, just kind of between the staff.
So you were not together? I mean, it was girls and boys separate in a different building?
Yeah, we were in different buildings. We weren't even allowed to look at the boys. That's a big no-no. That would get you in trouble.
Wow. I mean, that
Yeah,
kind
I
of
actually know who
education.
that is. I know who that is, and they they have a long way for their healing, but they're getting healing, and they're finally starting to get some justice with what was it they actually traveled all the way to New York. I helped them get there. Actually, I helped them get there so that they could get all of their paperwork so they could get justice.
Wow. I mean, wow. Uh, that is interesting. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's one of those dates that you have boys there and girls. Hmm.
Yeah, there's two separate dorms and there's two separate buildings. To be honest, the girls were in a library building for their schooling, and then they would go to the only thing that was shared was the kitchen, like the dining area, but we would never eat at the same time as the boys.
Okay. Um, it's just respect, integrity, honest, health,
Yeah.
and I guess lies for profit. Hmm.
Oh yeah. Well, so in the second video, I know you didn't watch it, but pretty
Mhm.
much there is a whole system. So I don't remember the exact name of it,
Mhm.
but pretty much they had us go through these seminars that used um guided meditation. It used pretty much things that were meant to help to make you disassociate. It was mind control techniques that they used to help you, finish the program. Even to the point that there was Breaking Point, which I never attended Breaking Point, and I praise God for that because they changed the system because right before the hardest one. So accountability was always the hardest one, but then they changed it right when I was supposed to go, and it ended up being very easy, and I got through. But breaking point was pretty much doing hours and hours of repetition. I guess they would do the hands together, hands apart. I don't know exactly how they did it because I was not in it, but the other girls know about that,
Mhm.
and I feel like I was protected from
Wow.
that.
Yeah, I saw the video, the first one, and they were talking about this motion thing, that little, and everybody's like,
Yeah.
wow.
And it's to break you. It's
Yeah.
literally called breaking point, and it's to break you. They pretty much break your will. I mean, a lot of this was done by I mean, this whole system is actually held up by Latter-day Saints. And I'm not saying that all Latter-day Saints are wrong, but there is a lot of things like they're known well for abuse, especially child abuse. It's called breaking their will, and they would break our will while we were there. Um, every person who worked there was a Mormon. And so, like, even though it wasn't known to be Christian, they, like, even the schooling was, which was not accredited, by the way. It was a homeschool program,
Mm.
but the parents were paying for a school
Right.
accreditation because I homeschool my kids, but if you're paying like tons and tons of money,
Mm-hmm.
you'd
For to
think
be
that
credit,
your kids would be accredited. Yeah, that it'd be accredited.
Interesting. So if they were not teaching about the Bible, Christian songs or
No,
Jesus, or
no.
something, it was just
The homeschool
cool.
program had a Bible class that you had to do, and it was just basic things like teaching creation and it being creation science, which I don't think that's bad. Some of the kids think it's bad, especially if they don't believe in God.
Mm.
But well, they're not kids anymore. It's so strange because a
Yeah.
lot of us, like, we refer to ourselves as kids as if we are not grown up, but we are grown up.
Hmm. Yeah. So you were able to have a Bible if you want to read?
Yes, yes. I was able to have a Bible. The thing was, I think it's interesting because at the time, I was a kid and like I wanted Harry Potter, but my mom sent me a Bible, which I'm glad that she didn't send me Harry Potter. Now, go figure. I went and read it anyways, and I've repented of that.
Man.
But you know, I remember I was reading the Bible and this girl came up to me and she was talking to me about the Bible. And I said, I want to read the Bible. It's just boring. And she said, why don't you just read Revelation? That's not boring. And so I decided to read Revelation. And, I was raised Catholic. So there were questions that I started sending to my mom, like questions like, well, why does the Bible say that the dead rise first? And I was like, why does the Bible say that there's going to be judgment at the end? I mean, how do we go to heaven right away and then be judged in the end? And my mom couldn't really answer those questions. And, I had a lot of other questions too, like, why are we praying to the dead? And, because I started just really getting engulfed in this Bible, and I wanted to learn about the end specifically. And I remember asking her about it, and she sent me these Left Behind books, and I started reading it. And I remember being frustrated. I was like, this isn't in the Bible. And I stopped reading them, even though she sent them to me, because it didn't match with what I was reading. I was like, this is nothing like what it says. It's actually interesting, because if I had never been reading that Bible, like while I was in boarding school, I doubt, I know that the school itself was not a blessing to me. I know that it traumatized me, but God used it for good. Just kind of like Joseph, when he was when he was sent to prison, falsely accused, he ended up using it for, God used it for good, and he ended up managing it, and he gave him, Joseph ended up blessing the prison instead, and it actually gave him, it built his character in some way. For me, it gave me a time to read my Bible, because that was something I wasn't doing at home, and I wasn't learning. And I wouldn't have read Revelation. And I think that a lot of people may not see that as a blessing, only because it's like, yeah, well, God could have gotten me the Bible a lot easier than me being beat up and being neglected or being, withheld food, stuff like that. And I agree with that, but God kind of has to work with, he has to work. The best way I can explain it is that he always explains the devil as being like the prince of the air, or, the prince of, he's ultimately, this is his battleground. The devil, when Eve took from the fruit and Adam took from the fruit, they were giving their homage to God, to the devil instead of God. They trusted him over God's word. So ultimately, the devil tries to use the same system of, where he has legal right to be, just like God. And ultimately, when there's people who are not praying, they're not studying, and they're just saying, I believe in God, but they don't do anything about it, they're raising their kids and they're raising themselves. I mean, they're living their life unprotected without any armor. So the devil has right to do harm when you're not asking for protection, when you're not doing anything for protection, because he has the legal right according to the law, because he's going to balance whatever God's law is. It's like, well, they're not doing their part, and he's going to be able to get that wedge in. And that's why it's so important to pray for people who are going through bad situations, or who don't believe in God, because you're literally giving a foothold for God to be in their life. And a lot of us needed that foothold. A lot of us we were neglected because sin is the problem. This type of stuff exists because of sin. It's all because of the devil. And I think that the people don't understand. They think that God's just going to reach his hand in and get us out of our bad situations or our hard situations. But some of them, it's called natural consequences. You sow what you reap. So ultimately, because my parents did not know what to do, because they didn't know how to handle the situation, and because also they weren't communicating and they didn't know how to communicate. Ultimately, because they didn't know what was going on with me, I was acting out as a teenager, because I was already dealing with living in a traumatizing world. And kids don't know how to process that. Adolescents don't know how to process that. Our frontal lobes are not even fully formed until we're 25. So ultimately, I wasn't good at making good decisions, but I didn't have anyone leading me to do anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And I have a few more pictures, because like I said, I cannot share a video, and I just want your point of view.
Mhm.
You know, this is like, I mean, how are you gonna educate those kids? I mean, I don't know what these kids did. Maybe, you know, just maybe ask a question when the teacher was asking or something. But I mean, this is not even, I mean, nice education school. And they're focusing about this girl, Alexa Brand.
Yeah.
And it seems like you know her, and you were, and you
Yeah, I
saying,
do know her. I do. She was in my class. I was there before her. I remember when she came. Oh man. I remember it was one of the most traumatizing things. Anytime you saw a new girl, like just seeing them go through the pain. I mean, they're
and
not
that's
just
you
being
right here.
Yeah, I'm actually down at the bottom, and
Uh-huh.
Alexa, I put her name by her. I figured, she's already a public figure right now that it's okay for to point her out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was her. She was in my family, and she did way better than me. I was so bad at following rules, and it wasn't even like because I didn't want to follow them. I wanted to follow the rules. I tried to do the program. I just so I have ASD level 1, so I'm autistic, and I have ADHD. So I have pretty much a brain disorder. And some of the consequences that I would get in trouble for were things like talking without permission. So you weren't allowed to talk at all. And I have a very hard time personally just not saying stuff, or even like you'd get in trouble even for saying like, oh, sorry, like if you bumped into somebody, you were to say nothing, you know? And then like there's also what was called a neglect, and it's forgetting things. So, like, I would get in trouble, like, if I left my shoes or if I left my water bottle somewhere, you'd have to pick up a neglect. Well, to be honest, having a disorder like ADHD, you forget things. You forget them often. And, like, it's not like I'm not trying. So then it's like I'm having to work extra hard and, like, making songs in my head, like shoes, water bottle, like whatever it is, that I don't want to forget. I would have to keep on having to figure that out. And then while I'm like reciting all the things in my head over and over and over again of what not to forget, it's like I would forget some other rule and then I'd break that and get in trouble anyways,
Yeah. Wow. And well, I mean, yeah, I mean, unbelievable. To me, I don't know. I mean, it's just, and they were the teachers? They said,
This
please
one is
help.
this one's an old one, but there will be staff members that are there. I don't know. To be honest, I'm not educated enough to know exactly who these people are in this picture specifically. But, there were always staff members there, but also the parents, they would all gather together and they would go to these seminars as well. Because you see, to keep the money coming into these places, because the best way to explain it is these places were trafficking teenagers. They found a problem that was already created. The government, like people, I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound conspiracy theorist-like, but the government's more smart than people are giving them. I mean, you condition kids to be a certain way where then their parents don't know what to do, and then you create a solution for them to go. Then big people are getting big money. I mean, the guy who started off as a janitor. He has no training in how to like take care of kids. This is like some guy gets an idea, starts getting all these kids put into these buildings, into a dorm. They're promised that their kids are going to be better. And to be honest, there is no success rate. Like they said that there was like this high success rate, but I'll tell you right now, everyone that I know who got sent to this program has complex post-traumatic stress disorder, arrested development, or they're dead. And that's been the hardest thing, is finding out another one died from suicide, another one died from a drug overdose. These adults are hurting, and they don't know how to uncondition themselves. They don't know how to stop themselves from being anxious in situations that don't need to be anxiety. It's killing them. And there's no promise of us getting any justice either.
Do you think this film it will help to like kind of like start up something like investigating something? I mean, this is
They already
because it
have.
seems like
They already have.
they were institute. They were shutting down because the police that were going. I mean, I don't remember. I mean, I was not here in the 90s, but what do you think about this film?
I think that the film is being used for the purpose to expose the evil that is going on. And I believe that it's going to be it's a focus point right now because, you know, there's been many protests where many people have got, like in April 27th, tons of people who had gone to Ivy Ridge went and met at the City Hall demanding justice, you know, protesting that these places need to be shut down. You know, can you imagine paying the amount of money for a house, but it was to traumatize your children when you thought that your child was going to come back as a healed and, you know, obedient child with real skills, but instead they were beat up. And the thing is that they told you that you were a manipulator for so long. So people who were there like me, where I was there for, I was there for about 18 months. And for people who were there for so long, the parents have been going through, the family rep is calling them every day, and telling them what kind of person that you are. And you don't get to talk to your parents until you're level 3, and it's only once a month for 10 minutes, I think, or something like that. 10 minutes, and it's super fast. And you're not allowed, there's someone on the other line making sure you don't say the wrong thing because they'll hang up that phone on you. And then you'll get in trouble. Like, you know, it's interesting because, like, in my notes, you know, we had to write every single day, and I have the privilege of having these back so that I can have healing. But it's like things like this, you know, like I wrote this: today is okay. I just feel like I'm slowly falling down. I really feel that I have no motivation. I am getting nowhere. My family tires me. And all I want is something new. I just want something different. I'm tired of the same thing every day, the same faces every day, the same schedule every day. And everything's the same. Even the holidays are all the same. All we do is watch movies all day long, and it's boring. That's for holidays, and every Sunday we would watch movies all day. I feel like I'm getting nowhere. I feel as if no matter how hard I try, I won't get anywhere. I feel stuck, just gaining points and not able to go further, like an endless loop that keeps on replaying. I just want something different. I want to be noticed. So that was just, you know, I had already been there. This is 1304. So it was, I went there in April of 03. So I've almost been there for a year now. I'm 2 months short of a year. And it's just, you know, even as a kid, you know that something's not right about doing everything like a robot. You get up, you know, as soon as you get up, you're being screamed at, get up, you know, or you're going to get in trouble. And then they start counting down. You better be in here or you're late. And if you didn't get there on time, they'd be like, pick up a late, pick up a late, pick up a late. And, you know, sometimes you would even have to pick up things that weren't even your fault. Like, I remember it was something like, I coughed too loud, so I get a loud and boisterous. You weren't even allowed to pass gas without having permission. And if the staff member, if it was reading time, if you raise your hand and ask a question, that's a BRV. Because that's what it says right here. I got a BRV, you know? And it's like things that I shouldn't be anxious about, but it's like, you know, raising my kids, I shouldn't be anxious. Like, just let my kid go to the bathroom, you know? Like, I don't even want them to wait because of having situations where I remember as a teenager crying, being like, please, I'll take a correction. Just let me go to the bathroom, you know? And it's like, no one needs to have to go through that kind of oppression. I don't know what to call it. Control. It's like everything about us was controlled. What we were allowed to say, like every day at the end of the day, we were allowed to talk for 30 minutes, but it was only to our buddy. And it was only for feedback, which meant we were only supposed to tell each other what we could do better. So we were supposed to point out to each other at the end of the day, every day, what we did wrong and how we could do better. So can you imagine doing that over and over and over again, being conditioned in your mind, and then being an adult? And it's like, when you grow up, you don't stop doing that. Now it's like every day you look at yourself and you're like, what could I do better? What could my spouse be doing better? You know, it's stuff that we didn't need implemented in us. It didn't help us. And that was our only communication, you know?
Yes. So when you were able to send a letter, or they need to read the letter before you send it to your parents? I mean, you say, hey, please take me out of here. I mean, but maybe your parents, they were like, they're telling a huge lie that you're, I don't know, different. And of course,
they would tell our parents that if they pulled us out, we would end up dead. Like, our parents were terrified. They thought that we were going to end up dead, that we were going to end up prostitutes or trafficked, but we were being trafficked there. Like, there's things that I just don't get, like things like hearing things like that the family reps would get commission for keeping you there longer. Why would that even be a thing? You know? And, you know, as I go through my paperwork, I'd see many times my mom had said she was going to take me out, and the family rep would encourage her to take out other loans. And then when my brother was sent to one too. He was kicked out of his, expelled, because he went, it was like a whole year and refusal to work his program. But anyways, she encouraged her to take that money as well and to use it towards mine, because she said I was doing so well. And then when it was like, it was time for me to, I finally had gotten what was an upper level, which upper level is like when your program really starts, because pretty much you don't get to go home until you're level 6, and upper level is pretty much, think of it this way, lower level was going to take a year no matter what, even if you tried. Like, it just, there was no way, no one, like, even if you got level 4, it's just like there was always a extra year added on once you were level, upper level. Like, it was, the best way, it was a scam. It was a scam that a lot of parents fell for because they were desperate. You know, I'm sure that there will be people that will listen to this and they won't agree with some of my point of views, like by beholding you become changed and things like that, or that parents, you know, weren't trying hard enough. But I think that it really was an easy way out. A lot of people, they learn that, you know, just it's easier to pay someone else to do it. It's easier to pay a maid to clean your house. And for parents, it's easier to send them to school. And if that school doesn't work, it's easier just to pay for someone else to do it. You no longer have to deal with the arguing. You don't have to deal with with raising up a adult mind. Instead, you can give someone else to do it, you know, and then you don't have to deal with, you know, disagreement. You don't have to deal with having to train them what real values are and why they have them. And I know that people may not like to hear that, but ultimately it was the easy way out, because the hard way was to sit down with your kids and be like, hey, what's going on? What can we do to change this? The hard thing is to get your kids, you know, the proper therapy with what's going on, and not just sending them to a therapist also to, you know, fix the problem. But I mean family therapy, figuring out like, hey, how can we work together to make this situation that we're dealing with in our family a better, you know, a better thing. I don't even know what to give it, like what word to say. Just, this school was not anything but, it was a business, you know, they were making money off of kids, and it was easy. They knew that it was an easy business, you know, like someone with a heart, they see that there's a lot of elderly, and that elderly need a place to go. They make a home. With these places, they saw there's a lot of, you know, adolescents, and, you know, most of them either rebel or go through some kind of, you know, testing their boundaries with their parents. And with parents that are scared and they don't know what to do, it's so much easier for them to see this pretty picture of, you know, this is a prep school. They will teach your children etiquette. It will teach your children how to be functional adults. Like, they used to like say that they taught us how to use checks, but the check system that we had was when we were upper levels. we would get fake money and we would write checks to be able to have fun. And if you didn't have any money, any good points, your good dollars that you would get, then you didn't get to go have fun with everyone else, So the money management was not even based off of real life things like paying bills. They didn't teach us how to, do like even how to cook. Can you imagine like coming out of the program at age 18 and you don't know how to cook? The only thing you've ever done is worked in the kitchen as somebody who just scooped things onto a tray. That's your only cooking experience. A lot of us, like basic skills were not given to us that, parents are supposed to teach.
Thank you for sharing. I heard in this documentary said that when it's time to go to the bathroom, they're not allowed to shut the door.
No, you're not. You're not. Because you might try, like they would say things like, you might try and lock yourself in there. Or we don't know what you're doing in there. You might be trying to hurt yourself. Like, honestly, there were, like, when you first get there, this is the best way to explain it. You get there and immediately you're brought to you're separated from your parent. You're just separated, and they start asking you questions like, have you ever done this before? Have you ever done drugs? And they'll give you a drug test, and then they have you take all your clothes off and they make you do jumping jacks in front of these people that you don't know, these strangers, to make sure that you're not hiding anything. And, that's just traumatizing in itself, like, and you lose all dignity. It's cold. You're in front of strangers. They're taking all your stuff. Even if, we were as kids doing wrong, because I'm not saying I wasn't doing wrong, like I was struggling with things that like, I was self-medicating in some areas. Like I remember when I went there, I was smoking cigarettes and I had drank like twice in my life. And I had smoked marijuana once, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But like the other, like, it was just like they added things. Like, for instance, they put down that I was popping pills, but I was, it was Adderall, and I was prescribed it, but then I wasn't prescribed it. And then I took my brother's, and that was not me popping pills to get high, Mm-hmm. Honestly, when I went to that school, when I got out, I knew more about drugs than I had ever had known in my life. Things that I had never done before. I now had the curiosity of it, of hearing people about it. When I got out of that school, I was, and so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know that I can ramble on, but when I was 15 and I was sent there, I had begged my mom for a therapist, and after many, many months, I finally got one, and I was able to get my paperwork. I was diagnosed with PTSD before I had even gone to that program. This therapist was able to tell by my past life that I had already had PTSD. Because of this school, I now have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is extremely difficult to live with. What's difficult is that I was supposed to get healing there. Many of these kids were supposed to get healing. And there was nothing done. This wasn't just, taking kids. This wasn't like a place, these kids were bad. They could have died. Like, this wasn't helping any of these kids. Instead, we all grew up to be incredibly traumatized, incredibly broken. A lot of us have gone through divorce. A lot of us have gone through lots of heartaches, addictions, and just not even knowing how to live life. Like, it's not even a joke. It's like we can't seem to just live normal. And that's hard. Like, even if we succeed in things, like there's this constant lingering failure over us, like we're not doing good enough. And what I mean is it wouldn't matter if we got our degree and we had a doctorate. It wouldn't matter if we had 2 doctorates. We would never feel like we're doing enough because we were constantly pushed in this way as a kid to be perfect. We had to be perfect. And anytime we got somewhere, we always had to remind ourselves that we were still bad. And there was just constant gaslighting by the staff members. They were abusive. They would give you nicknames. One of my nicknames was Nympho, which is the term for a sex addict. I was not a sex addict. I was a little girl who was abused. And because of the abuse, I became sexually active. I was confused with the feelings. I was traumatized. And to call a little girl, because 15 is still a little girl, a nympho is just wrong, you know? Like, these people, you know, like Alexa was called crackhead because they said there was crack on her drug test, but her drug test didn't have drugs on it. Like, she was able to get her files back. There was never drugs on it. She was given nicknames of something that she never was, and she had to constantly claim it. Like when you say something, the way that the brain works, so when you say something positive, or if you're using God's promises, because God's promises are ultimately the way to get through all this, is remembering his promises and telling it to yourself over and over again. The brain is a wonderful organ. You see, the way that it works is when you tell yourself something, the brain tries to find evidence of it. So if you tell yourself positive things, if you tell yourself promises and you reassure yourself, your brain's going to try and find that reassurance. But if you tell it negative things, if you say things like, I'm a failure, if you say things like, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a drug addict, things that you hear AA saying, it's like, hi, I'm so-and-so and I'm an alcoholic, you're giving your brain the pathways to look for that problem. So I always try to say, you know, I'm an overcomer, you know, because you got to give your brain something positive. And that's the one thing that was hard, is that we were constantly every day supposed to reflect on what we did wrong. Like in this book, this is called Reflection. These are our journals. It's actually really sick. My husband's been helping me because we've been kind of like going through them and putting bookmarks on them, writing stuff over them, claiming promises over them, stuff like that.
Amen.
And, you know, ultimately, you know, what I see when I read this, we go. Mm-hmm. What I see when I read this is that I started off by saying, I'm okay. Now, there's a difference between telling yourself you're okay when you actually are okay and telling yourself you're okay when you're not okay. And so ultimately, I was confusing myself. And the reason that I was confusing myself was because it says, I would start off saying, I'm okay. But ultimately, it was like, everything's the same. I'm not happy. I don't want to be here. I want change. So I ultimately wasn't okay. You know what I mean? And these kids ultimately weren't okay. And this is another thing that affects me in my life, is that when I am in uncomfortable situations, or when I need to make a boundary, I instead say, I'm okay, or it's okay when it's not okay, because I wasn't allowed to have boundaries, you know?
Wow, interesting. I mean, sometimes we don't think about, you know, I mean, or like you're saying, you know, like your brain, your attitude, your, you know, how to deal with situations, you know, and when you constantly have this pattern, like, no, it's not okay. I'm dealing with this stuff. I need help. And then you need to be like, no, I'm okay. Oh, I'm okay. I was like, what?
Well,
no, I need
there's
help.
a difference between being positive and then toxic positivity. You see, with being positive, it's like, okay, I'm having a bad day, but let me think about what good happened today. You know, that's good positivity because you have evidence of it. But to tell yourself I'm okay and not being okay, actually there's abuse going on. It's like, when I get to, like, there's been so many situations that a young child should not have had to endure, you know? And ultimately, it's made it hard for me to handle even real, like, it's like, the best way I can describe it is that during normal, calm days, I have a harder time functioning than days that are in chaos, because we thrived in chaos there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like having something mundane just feels wrong now. Having to do the same thing over and over again, like, we get burnt out. It's too much. Like, we want change, and it's hard, because the thing is that, like, there is an expected number of, like, an expected of amount of change in a schedule, but too much will make it impossible to live as well, you know?
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you first of all, how God changed your life? Because I know it's like a daily, or maybe it was years ago, or maybe sometimes show up this thing, and in life is like, you know, it comes, remember, you know, your memories come back, but Jesus come to your life, and like you say, it was promises. Now I hear that you using promises to, you know, to help you out, you know, and you know, I mean, you're married, you have kids, and to bring a healthy marriage and relationship with your spouse and your kids, and you know, I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but it can be a little tough. I mean, just like a normal situation with marriage and all stuff. I mean, it can be a little ups and downs, you know, like anyone else. But tell me how God came to your life, and you're like, you know what? I'm not gonna let Jesus go, because this is the one that's gonna help me to go through it. Life. Share with us.
Well, you know, my testimony, you know, it's kind of like a lot of other people's, you know. You see, instead of getting help the right way the first time, to be honest, I did fall into, after boarding school, I went completely just on my own. I moved in with some, like, random people that I didn't even know. I ran away from home, and I actually got sent to a second program, which was worse than the first one. But God ultimately helped me, because even though I went through all these things, I'm able to see now in my future how he was with me. You see, there were girls where they were sexually abused there, you know, and God protected me. God protected me. And the reason I say he protected me is because I became an upper level. I was an upper level with Alexa. Alexa, like, unfortunately, she was being abused. She was being abused, but I didn't know. All I knew is that I wanted to be one of Miss Ritchie's girls. Like, she would always have the girls, you know, in her office, or she would take them places. She would do things with them. And I remember, like, anytime, like, I would get this, you know, relationship with her, something would happen. And I remember I lost my upper level the first time. She was the one who made me an upper level. And she had put me on an upper level challenge, because I don't know, it was because my buddy had run away and I caught her. But I had just gotten level 3, so then I got level 4 immediately after level 3 because of that challenge. But because of this system, I ended up losing it. But a lot of the whole reason I bring this up is because every time I would get up to upper level, I would immediately lose it. And at the time, it was like, well, come on. Like, I lost it the first time because of, it was like, I didn't bring my buddy's book to the library, but because my buddy was in sick bed. She was sick, and sick bed is a dark room where they have a mattress on the floor, and you stay there all day when you're sick. But I couldn't do it because I had just become level 4, and no, she wasn't sick bed. She had run away. I couldn't bring her. She was in intervention. I couldn't bring her book because she was in she couldn't bring it because she was in intervention, and I couldn't bring it because I became a level 4, so I wasn't there when they went to the library. But the staff member, she was like, too bad. And so, like, that was very short-lived, you know? And the second time was because I forgot my water bottle and my shoes and my water bottle again, all in the same week, which gives me a trend. But then they found some pictures I drew, and I'm sorry. I know that I'm gonna bring it back to how God helped me. Yeah. But you see, these situations were actually what caused me to not end up, like, to me, it was God protecting me from being abused. Amen. Now, I feel terrible because, I was abused myself when I was younger, and I could only imagine it being like the abuse happening again, which, and I did have abuse happen again later on in my life, but that's honestly because of the lifestyle I was living. I wasn't protecting myself and I wasn't living responsibly. How God helped me was ultimately I had to get down to a rock bottom. I had already dealt with so much, I had my first marriage and it failed. And it failed because I remember, I was just living every day. Like I just wanted a party. I kept on, every weekend I would try and get people to come over, and I always wanted people around. And eventually it just, it would fizzle out and the joy was no longer there. And I wasn't feeling fulfilled in my life with the lifestyle that I was living. And I had tried going to drugs and I had tried drinking and, I had my son, Logan. So now I've got this 1-year-old and I'm doing drugs and I'm drinking and I'm partying and I'm trying to live it like a normal life because the family that I married into, like they were okay with all these things. They, they would have parties often. I mean, they had a kegerator, they had a beer fridge, the wine rack and a liquor cabinet. So like drinking was prevalent with this family as in, we're not drunk. We're not alcoholics, they would say, because they function. They went to work, Some people would call this a high-functioning alcoholic, because they still get the responsibilities done and they still get to drink at the end of the day or on the weekend, and that's their life. That's the heaven they chose for themselves, And I couldn't keep up with that life. I tried to be okay with it, but God had different plans for me. He wouldn't let me be comfortable in it. And ultimately, when it came down to it, it led to my ex-husband, just saying one day, I want a divorce. And it wasn't just him and that lifestyle, but I was falling apart because I had trauma that I wasn't able to deal with. You see, people don't understand that trauma isn't this thing where it's like, oh yeah, you have trauma, you got hurt, just think positive. It's not like that. Like there, you can see in a PET scan, physical brain damage from trauma. And when you are being traumatized, the brain sees it as physical pain. When you relieve those experiences, your whole nervous system is on fire. You can't think properly because your frontal lobe, it's switched off. Because you see, when that cortisol hits and you have trauma, your brain's like, nope, and it needs to protect it. So it puts on the force field, if you will, And so anything that is coming out of my mouth is only going to be fight or flight. I'm either going to fight you or I'm going to try and run away, And it's not something that I'm happy with. It's not something that I wanted to be. But I didn't know how to stop it. And people think that, oh, you just need to have more self-control. Well, it's a lot. It sounds a lot more easier said than done. Because once you're in fight and flight and your frontal lobe is off, which makes your decisions for you, they're good decisions, which is the control system. Once that's off, it's no longer voluntary, which it gets to the point for some people, which is just disassociation. And disassociation is blacking out. And so you're acting and you are living as if you are facing the trauma right in that very moment. And the situation doesn't even have to be related to the exact trauma you went through. It could just make your brain feel like it. For instance, for me, abandonment was a very big one. If I felt like someone was trying to leave me, leave a friendship, leave a relationship, I would panic. And it would cause me to have a full-blown PTSD episode. Now, they've shown that people, they get violent when they're in the military and stuff like that. It can be like that, or it can be like a full-blown toddler meltdown. And that's something that, as a Christian, you start to think, is this me? Is this my character? And you want to change it. And it's like, no matter how hard you try, you keep on finding yourself triggered and back in this loop of insanity. And ultimately, it tore my marriage up. because every disagreement, every argument where I didn't feel like I had justice, where I didn't feel like I had, when I felt like I was right, and because I had gone through for so many years of not being allowed to voice my opinion and be like, no, I'm right. It's like all of a sudden I couldn't stop myself, and it was like I was demanding justice, you know? And God, you know, he's been healing me from that, but it's a lot of hard work, because the only way that you're going to get healed from this is that you have to actually go through the pain you were supposed to. Like, I hate to say it, but as like, you know, I was taught by my as I was told, the best way is that that little girl needs to cry like she was supposed to when she wasn't allowed to. And it's hard, because the only way that I have healed, and this is my very message, the only way I've healed is through God's promises. When I struggle with temptation, there's no temptation such as common to man, that God will see a way. He will give you a way out. You know, when I feel weak, when I am weak, then he is strong. Or he gives power to the weak and strength to them that have no might. You know, I have to have those promises on hand to help ground myself, to help get myself through the day, to help get myself through the panic. He promised that he would help me and heal me. You know, people don't understand, like I was talking about earlier, about how beholding makes you become changed, and how you need to be able to focus on, you know, positivity without it being toxic, like I'm okay when I'm not okay. It's like the best way for me to deal with this is I have had to have anguishing, terrible, hysterical crying in the Lord. And I give him all of that pain I had to go through. I tell him every bit of the abandonment that I felt, the neglect, the not being heard. And now I give it to him, and he deals with it, you know? And sometimes, you know, we take it back and then we have to give it again. But the best part about it is realizing is that my illness is not me. It's not my character. It's just a broken brain. It's the result of sin. And as long as I have God's word, and I have that time in the morning, at night, it's like taking out the trash for your brain, if you will. You dump it all on God, and he can handle it. He says, come boldly before the throne of grace. I think that a lot of people, they think that prayer is just like, oh, dear Jesus, please be with me and help me get through my day. But they don't understand that when you have trauma, he wants to take it. When he was in Gethsemane, he was bearing that, and he wants you to give it to him so that he can put it up on that cross. And I think that's the message that everyone is not understanding, is they're like, why did I have to go through all this? We had to go through it because of sin. We live in a sinful world. We live in a very corrupt, sinful world. And we had to go through it because of free will. People have free will to be greedy. People have free will to be abusive. And unfortunately, no man lives to himself. So even if you're a good person, you're going to go through bad things. Job had to go through bad things, and he was considered a righteous man.
That's true.
His children had to go, they died, you know? He went through trauma. Do you think, if not once did he say to God, why did you do these things? He had an understanding that a lot of people don't have, which is the devil gets right to try and mess our lives up, because he was able to claim, oh, it's because of all the blessings you give them. It's because you're giving them the easy way out. And it's just, you know, some people may not be able to accept it. Some people may not like the idea of giving God all their stuff because, you know, women, they're instilled with this, no, I'm an independent woman. I can deal with it on my own. But not even man can deal with it on their own. Men have been taught, don't share your emotions, you know, like you got to be a stone wall, you got to be tough. But the thing is God made us an emotional being.
That's right.
Even Jesus wept. Now, he wept over the unbelief that people had. He wept, you know, because, you know, he's like, for him, I can only imagine. It's like, man, you're right here with me and you still don't believe?
And like went to, you know, he was caring for other people, you know, and
yeah.
I'm sure we can be 3 more hours talking, and I don't know, maybe I need to invite you once again to Just Be Blessed, talking about, more in detail or more stuff. But I just want to share with you guys that sister Maggie and her family and her husband tell us about the ministry that you guys involved, because let me tell you, God is so good. And please share with us.
Yeah, so it's called Advent Age Missions. So my husband and I, in the picture you can see back over here is my husband. We have our mission with our 3 boys, and we do camp meetings, and ultimately it's just getting people together, and we're helping people learn things like, prepping for, like off the grid prepping, wild edibles, and we have things like teaching about the Reformation. A lot of people don't know about the Reformation, helping people realize why they even became a Protestant in the first place, or why they are, and why we're separate from the Catholic Church. And also helping people heal. That's one of the things. We do medical missionary work, as well as we're doing mental health help. And eventually we want to be able to turn it into like a lifestyle center where people can go and get healing physically and mentally. And we want it to be free always. I don't know if it will always be possible, but right now everything is free, and we are based off of donations only. So people camp on our campground, and we've got places like even those ponds right there, they have fish in them. We even have people can fish, and that's relaxing for some people. Some people are creeped out by it, but we want to make a community actually where people can come here and work on the mission. People who are like-minded, have the same beliefs, and ultimately, in the end, we're hoping that people will be prepared for the things to come, prepared for the end times, be prepared to be healed, because a lot of people don't touch the subject of mental health. A lot of people don't touch the subject of healing mentally. And did you know that most illnesses start in the brain first? If we're not helping ourselves here in our mind, if we're not helping ourselves in our mind, how are we going to physically be well when it starts here? So we're teaching people how to, heal their brains and to have good brain health, and, how to give themselves a life where, they can live like we were supposed to be. We weren't meant to be in a house watching TV all day. We were meant to be outside. We were meant to be working with our hands, gardening, farming, trading, bartering, learning how to sew. And these are the type of things that we want to achieve. And I want to teach children these things. I want children to be able to heal and to learn how to be adults the right way,
Amen.
And
Amen.
so I'm hoping that in the future we can have more and more. And as we get more donations, that eventually we can get this to be a year-round thing going all the time. But right now it's just during spring and fall. And that's because we don't have AC in the building.
Yeah.
Well, in some parts, only in some parts. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there. I was able to share my testimony. Brother Jeremy invited me, and it was really neat. It's a big location. A building, and beautiful property. And I just went for a few hours, just for the whole day. But it was delicious food. I had an experience, and you guys do a lot of seminars for different things. Health and talk about music and Reformation and faith and all stuff, and they're really good speakers, and great, that's very neat. So before we're gonna end this your testimony, I just want you to look in the camera and take a moment, and what are your final thoughts about your experience? I know it's very painful experience, but maybe people out there right now, maybe they went through that school, or maybe they didn't go to the school, but maybe they're really bad situation in their life right now. Can you please talk to them and just share the gospel to them? What do you think when you find out testimonies?
A lot of people, they try to, think of like, they want to relate, when they've gone through things, they try to relate. And one of the best things that have helped me is that when I have been going through a hard time, or I'm feeling a ton of pain, like I'm just in anguish, like my brain can't handle what I need to heal with, a memory that I get is Jesus felt it all in Gethsemane. When you're there crying, or, or if you're angry or whatever it is that you're feeling, it's just one thing that will really help me was realizing when I was feeling that at that very moment, Jesus was feeling it for me. And he knows how to understand. He knows what I went through. And just knowing that he knows it and he wants to help me has helped me understand that, this is like a parent having to watch their child, but being, only limited to what they're allowed to do. Kind of like me being in the program. My parents were limited what they were allowed to do. It's kind of like this world is Satan's program and how he wants us to be, And so when we look at it that way, and we have the Bible, and we have, the Word, the Spirit of prophecy to guide us so that we don't have to live these traumatizing things, it's a lot more comforting. It's like a love letter, And knowing that he felt it for us, we can then relate to him being crucified as well, knowing that, we were supposed to be there, but he did it for us. It wasn't just our sins, it was our anguish and our pain and the sins that were done on us that he felt as well. And even he needed human compassion. And I think that ultimately, prayer is important, not just for yourself, but for those around you, because it helps you heal, and helping others helps you heal also. And that's what I chose. That's the route I chose, was to heal others to get my healing. And so those are the last words I have to say is, pray and, understand that he's gone through what you've gone through. And lastly, help others, because that's how you get true healing, is when you see other people heal. It's like you get your own part of, like, that. I don't know. It's like it gives you a piece of your soul back to see other people heal. So those are the last words I have to say. And God bless you guys.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much, Sister Maggie, for sharing. I don't know, you had the opportunity before. There's a platform, you share your testimony, or it's very personal, and I'm sure there's more. This is your story. And,
yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Seriously, I really appreciate it.
Thank you for hearing and listening. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. I think it's gonna be a huge blessing. Please don't hang up. I'm gonna finish this video. Okay, you guys, I hope you were blessed with this testimony, with Maggie's testimony, Sister Maggie's testimony. What a crazy ride. But let me tell you, that is true. It is real stories. There are a lot of people out there that they went through this kind of system, this kind of institute, and they were really damaged their whole life. I mean, seriously, literally, like the whole life, how they're gonna function, and later on in life. But let me tell you, God is the answer. Jesus is the answer, and Sister Maggie is a survivor. It is a living testimony, and we need to pray for her, please, and for all those people that went through that kind of institute. And I'm sure there's gonna be more testimonies out there after watching this documentary on Netflix. It's called Program. It's very, don't watch it with your kids. Please, this is very hard stuff. Okay, so I hope you were blessed, because we need to support this ministry, the Sister Maggie and Brother Jeremy. I have it's a good friend of mine. It's called Advent Age Missions, and look at that beautiful property they God give them, and they decided, you know what, I'm gonna be sharing gospel here and doing this stuff, and they need help. So please contact them. It's right there on the website, and also they have a donate button right here. So please support, subscribe to the forum, send an email, call them, say, hey, you know what, I heard about your testimony, I want to support, or I want to be with go over there and enjoy the seminars. Thanks so much for being here. If you want to be part of Just Be Blessed family and Patreon and support, and you like this kind of videos that here we produce here in Just Be Blessed, please be part of, consider to donate. And we have lots of testimonies. Thank you, Jesus, and Just Be Blessed. And we have over 170 testimonies. If you haven't subscribed on our YouTube channel, do it. My name is Alex Castillejos, and don't forget to share this testimony, because let me tell you, we share people's testimonies and I left the messages and how God is good. Good night. God bless you, and we'll see you next week with another powerful testimony. Bye-bye.